I never thought I'd be the guy who got cheated on. Not me. Not Greg Turner. Not after everything I gave her. We had the perfect life. At least, I thought we did. 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. 2 new cars. Weekend trips to the coast. I worked my ass off to make it happen. 60-hour weeks. Late nights. Missed birthdays. All of it for us. But she wanted more. And she didn't care who she had to screw to get it. I remember the night it all started to fall apart. It was a Thursday. Cold as hell outside, but she walked in wearing that red dress, the one I bought her for our anniversary. Tight. Short. Expensive. She never wore it for me anymore. Going out with Megan, she said, not even looking me in the eyes. Girls' night. I should have known right then. Megan had moved to Arizona 3 months ago. But I was tired. Burned out. I let it go. Stupid. She came back at 2 a.m. Her perfume was different. Stronger. Expensive. The kind of scent I couldn't afford on my salary. And she was smiling. Not tired. Not drunk. Just glowing. Something twisted in my gut that night. I didn't sleep. Over the next few weeks, the signs piled up like dirty laundry. Late night meetings. Locked phone. New clothes. She started talking about investments, about people who could help us level up. She wanted to sell the house. Move to the city. More opportunities, she said. But her eyes gave her away. They sparkled when she talked about him. I didn't know his name yet, but I could feel his shadow in every corner of our life. Then came the bank statement. $10,000. Withdrawn in cash. Gone. When I asked her about it, she didn't flinch. Oh, that? I gave it to a friend. It's an opportunity, Greg. You wouldn't understand. She was right. I didn't understand. Not until I saw them together. Not until I followed her one night and watched her get into his car, a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows and California plates. That's when everything snapped. She wasn't just cheating. She was selling herself to the highest bidder. And I was the idiot footing the bill. I sat in my truck across the street from the restaurant, the engine idling softly, my fingers trembling on the steering wheel. She'd been in his car for over 20 minutes. I watched them laugh. I watched him touch her hand. I watched her give him the same looks she used to give me when we still believed money didn't matter. When love was enough. A wave of fury crashed over me, but I stayed in the truck. I didn't want to cause a scene. I wanted to know more. I needed to see it with my own eyes, the full truth, no more guessing. The car door opened. She stepped out first, fixing her dress, smoothing her hair. He followed, tall, smug, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than our mortgage payment. He placed a hand on the small of her back, too familiar, too confident, and she didn't flinch. She leaned into it like she belonged to him. They walked into the restaurant together. Not like coworkers. Not like friends. Like lovers. Like something deeper. Something expensive. I followed. I waited 5 minutes, then walked in and asked for a table near the back. From there, I could see them clearly. They were sitting at a booth in the corner. He had ordered wine. Not just any wine, I could see the label. Vintage. Imported. A single bottle probably cost more than my week's salary. And she drank it like she was born to it. Like cheap grocery store Merlot had never touched her lips. They talked quietly, but I could see everything in her eyes. The way she smiled. The way she leaned in when he spoke. The way her hand rested on his wrist casually like it had every right to be there. That's when it hit me. She didn't love him, but she loved what he could give her. The clothes. The dinners. The promise of more. It wasn't about passion. It was about power. About stepping out of the life we built together and into a world of silk sheets and high-rise apartments. She was already gone. And I was just the safety net she no longer needed. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. My body was frozen, my mind racing in circles. I sat there, watching from the shadows as she laughed and drank and played the part of someone I didn't recognize. She looked happy. Genuinely happy. Not the kind of forced smile she gave me at home. Not the tired, distracted nods when I asked about her day. This was different. She was alive with him. She glowed. And I realized that whatever we had, whatever we used to be, had died a long time ago, and I was the only one still clinging to its corpse. When I got home, I sat in the dark for hours. No TV. No lights. Just silence and the dull hum of the refrigerator. Her scent was still on the pillows. Her makeup was on the bathroom counter. Her shoes were by the door. She was living 2 lives, and I had been too blind, too trusting, to see it until it was too late. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. When did I lose her? Was it when I started working more? When I missed our 3rd anniversary because of a conference in Dallas? Or was it always there, buried beneath the surface, waiting for someone richer, smoother, more powerful to pull her away? She came home just after midnight. Quietly. No guilt on her face, no hesitation in her steps. She tossed her purse on the counter, kicked off her heels, and walked straight past me sitting in the dark. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. We were two strangers sharing a house, pretending not to notice the ocean of betrayal between us. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal. Made coffee. Hummed while scrolling her phone. Even kissed me on the cheek as she left for yoga. I felt like screaming. Like shaking her. Demanding the truth. But something held me back. Maybe pride. Maybe fear. Or maybe I just wanted to see how far she'd go before I became completely invisible. So I waited. And over the next week, I became an expert in pretending. Pretending not to notice the new jewelry. Pretending not to hear her giggling on late-night calls in the bathroom. Pretending not to feel the sting every time she pulled further away. I followed her again. Twice. Once to a hotel downtown. Once to a condo I didn't even know she had keys to. Always the same man. Always the same cold pit in my stomach. I started digging. Into her phone records. Her emails. Her bank statements. I found things I didn't want to find: payments made to shell companies, wire transfers from unknown accounts, emails from lawyers about personal arrangements. This wasn't just a fling. This was a transaction. An exchange. My wife had become a product for sale, and someone had paid the price to own her. And the worst part? She didn't even try to hide it anymore. The breaking point came on a Sunday afternoon. I had just finished mowing the lawn when she pulled into the driveway in a brand new BMW, white, spotless, and gleaming in the sun. It wasn't hers. Not registered in her name. But she stepped out like she owned it, swinging her designer handbag over her shoulder and smiling at me like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just paraded her betrayal onto our front lawn for the entire neighborhood to see. I stared at the car, then at her, and something inside me cracked. The lies were no longer hidden behind late-night texts or secret rendezvous. She was flaunting it now, daring me to say something. I asked her where she got it. My voice was low, steady. She didn't even blink. A gift, she said, brushing past me. From a friend. A friend. That word hit like a slap. We'd been married for 7 years, and now I was standing in front of a woman who used to call me her best friend, listening to her talk about some other man who bought her a luxury car like it was nothing. My hands clenched. My throat tightened. But still, I didn't yell. I didn't demand. I just watched her walk inside and vanish into our house like she hadn't just set it all on fire. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to her soft breathing beside me, wondering how many more nights she'd come home to me only to dream of him. I wondered how many gifts he'd given her. How many secrets they shared. What he had that I didn't. It wasn't just money. It was something else: influence, confidence, control. Things I once thought I had, but had clearly slipped through my fingers without me noticing. By Monday, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her with shouting or accusations. That would only push her further into his arms. No, I wanted her to feel it, the weight of what she'd done. I started documenting everything. Every receipt. Every photo. Every message I could recover from her deleted texts. I hired a private investigator, drained half my savings for it. He was efficient, cold, and thorough. Within days, I had everything. Names. Addresses. Dates. Photos of them at luxury hotels, on weekend trips, even at private parties with people I'd never heard of but who dressed like they owned half the city. And through all of it, she kept smiling at me over dinner. Kept asking if I'd remembered to pick up the dry cleaning. Kept living our life like she wasn't shattering it piece by piece. She had no idea I knew. And that gave me the smallest, cruelest sense of power. 2 weeks later, I finally had enough evidence to destroy her. I had the photos printed, the messages archived, the bank transfers highlighted. I had copies of everything, digital and physical, stored in a safe deposit box and on a flash drive hidden in the garage. But the truth is, I didn't know what to do with it. I had all this proof, all this rage, and yet I felt empty. Like revenge wouldn't be enough. Like even if I exposed her to the world, nothing could bring back the man I used to be. The husband who believed her when she said forever. The fool who thought love could survive anything. I started distancing myself. Not in a dramatic way, but subtle. I stopped asking where she was going. I stopped calling when she stayed out late. I stopped pretending to care. And she noticed, oh, she noticed. At first, she tested me. Wore the same perfume she used after being with him. Left her phone unlocked on the counter as if daring me to look. Maybe she wanted a confrontation. Maybe she was tired of sneaking around. But I gave her nothing. Just silence. Indifference. and that scared her more than any argument ever could. One night, she asked me directly. We were in bed, backs turned to each other, the room thick with everything unsaid. "Greg, are we okay?" I almost laughed. Okay? We were miles past okay. We were buried under betrayal, rotting in silence, pretending to be something we hadn't been in years. But I didn't say any of that. I just muttered yeah and turned off the lamp. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. Cowards recognize each other in the dark. What she didn't know, what she would never have guessed, was that I had already met him. That's right. A week before, I had tracked down his office. It was a sleek tower in the financial district, all glass and arrogance. I didn't go inside. I just watched. Watched him arrive in his chauffeured car. Watched him laugh with his assistant. Watched him kiss my wife goodbye in the back alley like she was just another transaction. And that's when I saw it, the emptiness in his eyes. He didn't love her. He didn't even care. She was a prize. A trophy. A pretty thing he could dangle on his arm at business dinners and then discard when he got bored. And she was too blind to see it. Or maybe she did see it and just didn't care. Because money does that to people. It makes them trade love for comfort, loyalty for lifestyle. And I had nothing left to trade. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not yet. Not like this. I began planning my exit like a soldier preparing for war, carefully, deliberately, with a cold heart and steady hands. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to cry. She didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve one more drop of my emotion, one more ounce of my pain. What she deserved was exposure. Reality. The truth delivered in a way that would shake the foundation of the perfect little lie she had built for herself. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to make sure she couldn't run from what she'd done. I waited for the right moment. A Friday night. I knew she'd be out with him, she always was on Fridays. She dressed up a little more, sprayed a little extra perfume, and left with a smile she didn't even try to hide anymore. I stayed behind, packed my things, not in a rush, but with a quiet efficiency that comes only when a man is done. I didn't take much. Just what I needed. My clothes, my tools, a few personal items. I left the wedding album on the coffee table, open to the photo of us dancing, her head on my chest, her smile wide and real, or so I thought. I wanted her to see what she threw away. Then I placed the envelope. Inside, photos, statements, screenshots, a handwritten note. It wasn't bitter or angry. It was clinical. Factual. Here's what I know. Here's what you've done. Here's what I've lost because of you. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. She'd know. Before I walked out the door, I did one last thing. I unplugged the Wi-Fi router. Petty? Maybe. But for once, I wanted her to sit in silence with herself. No distractions. No curated feeds or sugar-coated texts. Just her and the truth. I drove to a small motel outside the city. Cheap, quiet, anonymous. The kind of place people go when they've got nowhere left to be. I laid on the stiff mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the hum of the old AC unit, and waited for the storm to hit. It didn't take long. My phone lit up around midnight. Texts. Missed calls. Voicemails. All from her. Some angry. Some panicked. One, just silence and sobbing. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen. She could drown in her own guilt now. I was done being her life raft. But what surprised me, what chilled me, was the message from him. Short. Sharp. Calculated. You made a mistake. Walk away. No name. No threats. Just that. And that's when I realized this wasn't just some affair. This was something darker. And I had just kicked the hornet's nest. I stared at the message on my phone for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen, every instinct in me screaming to delete it, to pretend it was just empty bravado. But something about those words, you made a mistake. Walk away. Didn't feel like a bluff. They felt like a warning. Not from a jealous lover or a scorned millionaire, but from someone who had power. Real power. The kind that doesn't shout, it whispers. The kind that doesn't need to threaten because it already owns the silence that follows. And suddenly, the pieces started to fit together in ways that made my stomach turn. This man wasn't just rich. He was connected. He didn't just buy her things, he bought access, influence, protection. I started thinking back, the emails, the wire transfers, the fancy parties she never told me about. The new people in her life. The sudden confidence, the recklessness. She wasn't just cheating, she was being groomed, brought into a world that didn't tolerate mistakes. And I had just exposed one. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, door locked, my phone clutched in my hand like it was a weapon. Every creak in the hallway outside the motel made my pulse spike. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore, I was afraid. Not just for me, but for what she might have gotten us both into. I thought I knew her, thought I could anticipate her choices, her desires. But this was something else. This was dangerous. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Told him everything, or at least enough. I wanted out of the marriage, no fault, clean split, no alimony, no negotiation. I had leverage, sure, but I didn't want a war. I wanted peace. I wanted freedom. I told him I'd send over the documents I'd gathered, but I didn't want them used unless she came after me. I didn't want to destroy her, not anymore. I just wanted distance. Clarity. Air. But the lawyer gave me something I didn't expect. He told me he recognized the name of the man she was involved with. He'd heard whispers. Deals gone quiet. Lawsuits that vanished. People who got paid to disappear. Careful, Greg, he said, his voice tight. This guy? He doesn't lose. He doesn't forgive. That's when the paranoia really set in. Every black SUV I saw felt like a tale. Every anonymous email felt like a trap. I changed motels twice that week, paid in cash, ditched my old phone. I didn't contact friends. Didn't talk to family. I vanished just enough to feel like I had control. Just enough to stay one step ahead of whatever storm might come. But the silence was the worst part. She never responded to the evidence. Not directly. No apology. No denial. No begging. She just went quiet. And that silence said everything. It said she was choosing him. It said she was too far gone. Weeks passed. The divorce papers were filed quietly, efficiently. No resistance from her side. She didn't even try to contact me again after that first night of panic. No calls. No emails. Not even a text. It was as if I had ceased to exist, erased from her world like an embarrassing chapter in a book she no longer wanted to read. At first, it hurt. God, it hurt. To be forgotten so quickly, so cleanly. After everything I gave, after all the years, the shared memories, the small traditions, the inside jokes, the stupid arguments that once felt like the end of the world, she discarded me like a receipt from a dress she'd never wear again. But then something strange happened. I started to breathe again. At the motel, I found a kind of rhythm. I'd wake early, walk aimlessly, drink terrible coffee, and watch strangers live their lives. No one knew me there. No one expected anything. It was pathetic, maybe, but it was real. And in that silence, in that blankness, I began to see the truth that had been hiding behind all my anger. She didn't ruin me. I let her. I let her become the center of my universe. I let her needs outweigh my own. I worked myself into the ground trying to give her everything, security, comfort, a future, all while she was dreaming of something shinier. I missed the signs because I didn't want to believe she could be that shallow, that cold, that transactional. But she was. And no amount of love or loyalty could have changed that. Still, part of me kept wondering if she ever regretted it. If late at night in that glass apartment paid for by someone else's lies, she ever looked in the mirror and saw what she'd become. If she missed the way I used to hold her, the stupid inside jokes, the nights on the porch with a bottle of wine and nothing but time. Did she ever wish she had chosen differently? Then, one morning, I got my answer. A letter. No return address. No name. Just a plain white envelope slid under the door of the motel room I hadn't told anyone about. Inside, one photograph. Her. Sitting alone at a rooftop bar. Expensive dress, flawless makeup, but her eyes, they were empty. Haunted. Lost. On the back, a single line in her handwriting. I thought it would feel better. No apology. No explanation. Just that. And somehow it hit harder than anything else she'd done. Because in that moment I knew she had finally realized the cost. And it was too late to pay it back. I held that photo for a long time, longer than I should have. It wasn't just a picture of her, it was a mirror reflecting everything we had become. Or rather, everything we had lost. She looked beautiful, yes, but brittle. Like something expensive and hollow, a crystal vase cracked at the base, moments from shattering. There was no triumph in her expression. No satisfaction. Just vacancy. Like she had climbed the ladder of ambition, rung by golden rung, only to find the top was a rooftop bar with no one to share the view. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger toward her. I felt pity. I thought about writing back. I even started a letter. Nothing dramatic. Just a few words. I hope it was worth it. But I didn't send it. Because the truth was I didn't need to. She already knew the answer. She lived it every day. Her punishment wasn't mine to give, it was already stitched into the life she'd chosen. A life of luxury, yes, but also of loneliness. Of cold sheets and empty glasses. Of men who owned her time but never her heart. I had loved her wholly, stupidly, selflessly. And she had traded that for glitter. For the illusion of power. For things that shine but don't last. In the days that followed, I burned the letter. Burned the photo too. It wasn't an act of vengeance, it was cleansing. A final severing of the invisible threads that still tied me to her. I watched the ashes float up into the air and disappear, just like the version of me who once believed we were unbreakable. That man was gone now. And maybe that was a good thing. I left the motel a week later. Found a small place in a quiet town where no one knew my name. Started working again. Something simple. Hands-on. Honest. I didn't need much, just space, air, time. I stopped looking over my shoulder. The message from him never led to anything. Maybe he realized I wasn't a threat. Or maybe she convinced him I wasn't worth it. Either way, I was done living in fear of shadows. The danger had passed. What remained was the scar. And you know what? Scars don't lie. They remind you. They teach you. They keep you from making the same mistake twice. One night, months later, I walked past a cafe and saw a couple laughing. The kind of laugh that comes from being seen, really seen, by someone who doesn't want anything from you but your truth. And I smiled. Not out of jealousy. Not out of longing. But because I knew I would get there too. Someday. Not yet. But someday. It's been a year now. A full year since I walked away from the wreckage of a life I thought was solid, only to discover it had been hollowed out long before the walls collapsed. And though I still carry the echoes of what happened, the betrayal, the disbelief, the raw ache that used to wake me in the middle of the night, I've come to see it for what it was. A brutal, necessary rebirth. The kind of pain that doesn't just cut, but carves. Shapes. Refines. I no longer check her social media. I don't wonder where she is, who she's with, or what she's wearing. That part of me, the version that lived for her smile, that bent backwards to make her happy, that held on to hope even as she slipped further away, he's gone. And in his place stands someone stronger. Someone quieter. Someone who no longer mistakes giving everything for being loved. I've learned that betrayal doesn't begin with the act, it begins with the lie we tell ourselves to justify the distance. She started leaving long before her body did. With every compliment she withheld. Every night she stayed silent. Every time she looked through me instead of at me. The affair was just the final nail. The real crime was how easily she stopped choosing me. But here's the thing, I'm grateful now. Not for the pain. Not for the humiliation. But for the clarity. For the brutal lesson that taught me to love with eyes open, not shut. That showed me the difference between being needed and being used. That forced me to find worth in myself, not in someone else's reflection. I've started to rebuild, not the old life, but a new one. Smaller, maybe? Simpler. But mine. I wake up without dread in my chest. I eat alone and don't feel lonely. I work, I walk, I sleep. And sometimes I even laugh. Real laughter. The kind that doesn't come with a catch in the throat. And when I see couples now holding hands, arguing over dinner, smiling at something no one else can understand, I don't feel bitter. I feel hopeful. Because I know love exists. I know trust can be real. But only if both people are willing to bleed honestly. To show up again and again even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She wasn't willing. But one day someone will be. And when that day comes, I'll be ready. Not because I need saving. But because I finally know who I am without her. And that's the only place real love can begin.